Hello everyone, this is Ponderonweather coming at you with another update. In this update, we're going to be talking about the upcoming snowstorms with Arctic air and a chilly rain. So before we do get started, if you do like weather-related content, please subscribe to my channel as I will upload daily updates to keep you ahead of the storm. And I do ask you to share this video with your friends and family on social media. All right, so let's get started. First of all, let's take a look at the 500 millibar pattern of the latest European model. This is March 1st. I can't even believe it's already March. But a couple standouts is these closed lows. They have very cold air aloft, and that actually drags it down to the surface. And believe it or not, there's actually some snow showers in far west Texas, getting into portions of New Mexico because of that this morning. And there's also another area of a closed low up here in the Northeast that is bringing some very Arctic air into the mix. And that's going to be sneaking into the Northeast for later on today, especially as we get into Tuesday with some very cold temperatures. But yeah, underneath that closed low, like I mentioned, could even be picking up even a trace of snow all the way out into Lubbock, Texas. Later on this morning into the afternoon. But a little heavier snow as we get into the southern plains, into portions of New Mexico here with several inches of snow, and then a chilly rain for you guys in Texas, like DFW, into southern Texas, where they were very warm yesterday, and now that closed low will be traversing across from west to east, bringing a chilly rain for the deep south as that continues moving across. But you can definitely see the temperatures by tomorrow morning on Tuesday, March the 2nd. Yeah, 26 degrees for West Texas. That is definitely some colder air. And even teens for New Mexico underneath that closed low. And you can see back behind it, yeah, where that came from. You're talking in the teens and portions of Wyoming and getting into Colorado. But another standout would be the Northeast, where they've got that Arctic air in place. And we're talking 20 below zero temperatures for you guys in southeastern Canada. And that colder air will sneak into the Northeast and bringing some very cold temperatures. Let me kind of zoom into that area. You can definitely see, I mean, these are actual temperatures by March the 2nd. And yeah, you can definitely see below zero in portions of the Northeast, and even a couple standouts like New York City, 16 degrees, wind chill of 5. Boston, 9 degrees, wind chill of 11 below. Philly, 21, wind chill of 8. Bangor, 0 degrees and wind chill of 23 below zero. So yeah, there's some definitely colder air. I mean, look at the wind chills. I mean, we talked about some of those wind chills, but yeah, even further north. I mean, we're talking 30 below 0 degrees wind chills, and even a 50 below zero in southeastern Canada. So yeah, there's definitely a slight glance of some definitely Arctic air that's going to be mixing into the pattern by the time Tuesday morning comes about. But as we continue across, that low will continue moving across, and by getting into Tuesday, going into Wednesday morning the 3rd, that's going to be right over Arkansas. And again, that's going to bring, taking advantage of some of those higher elevations in Arkansas. That actually could be bringing some more snow for you places in Arkansas as this continues moving across. You can definitely see that other low in the Northeast moving out. But back behind it, we yet have another low that's going to be coming off the west, and that will continue pushing across from west to east throughout the week as well. But underneath that low, yeah, you can definitely see some snow, believe it or not, for portions of Arkansas. This could be several inches of snow, but yeah, it definitely looks like central and northern portions of Arkansas, extreme southern portions, Missouri could pick up anywhere from possibly 1 to 3 inches from this system, and then a cold, chillier rain to the south. And you can definitely see in the latest NAM 3K model, yeah, you can see anywhere from 1 to 2 inches from that closed low out in west Texas, with a dusting into places like Lubbock, but into Arkansas, yeah, anywhere from a trace to possibly 1, 2, even upwards almost to 3 inches in some of the isolated spots into central and northern Arkansas and southern Missouri coming up on Tuesday. But by Wednesday, that air modifies a little bit, and with clearer skies, I mean this traverses this subsides a little bit as that Arctic air lifts back up into the back into southeastern Canada. But with colder temperatures, that colder air will sneak a little bit further south into Texas, and we're talking possibly 36 in Dallas Fort Worth, even a freeze in some of the outlining areas. But yeah, you can definitely see a little bit of colder air trying to sneak into the pattern, but that won't actually last long, as those winds will kind of turn around. But the reason being is let's take a look at some of the teleconnections, and kind of gives you a big story of how this is going to play out. I mean, you can see the NAO, which is the North Atlantic Oscillation. Here's March 1st. You can definitely see it dip. When it goes negative, that's allowing some of the colder air to intrude into the United States, and that's where you saw some of the colder temperatures in the Northeast. But that only lasts for several days, and you can see it definitely creeps back up by the time the 5th rolls around and actually goes positive. So that would imply we get a little bit warmer in the United States, but by the time we go back into the middle of the month, we could go, turn colder again. And also the PNA, which is the Pacific North American Oscillation. When this is negative, it's negative by the end of February, going into March. That's where we see some of the colder temperatures in the Pacific Northwest, and that will continue for the first several days into March. But even then, that goes positive as the NAO goes positive. So we definitely kind of modify over the United States towards the weekend. But then by early next week, to the 7th, 8th, we start to see the NAO traversing back down to negative, to neutral to negative again. And the PNA actually goes negative again. And that would imply colder air mixing back in the pattern into the Pacific Northwest, bringing some colder air for them and troughs, and the snowy pattern returns for the Pacific Northwest by the time that the second week rolls around. So they don't have much of a break. They only have several days after the first couple of days in March, but then it comes back again by the second week of March. So let's kind of take a look at this. I mean, here's some of these closed lows that we're talking about. That one off the West Coast, that will continue moving across, and by the 4th of March on Thursday, that'll be over the Four Corners region. That'll bring some more snow for you guys in Arizona, Utah, getting into portions of Colorado, into northern portions of New Mexico, right around that closed low, right? And that will continue moving across, getting closer into Texas. That'll bring the snow further in. Then Denver probably get some more snow by then, and that'll actually bring a colder rain starting to mix back into the pattern by the time Friday comes around. And you can definitely see in the higher, when you look at a high above at the 500 millibar, yeah, that closed low is going to be right over Texas, and that won't bring snow. It'll bring rain for you guys in Texas again by Friday. And that'll continue moving off to the east, and you can definitely see in the Northeast, in the far extreme portions of the Northeast, some of the colder temperatures tries to continue to hang on, but that continues moving across. And by Saturday, we saw the NAO go positive, we saw the PNA go positive, so that kind of relaxes the pattern by the time we get into the weekend, and everything kind of modifies a little bit and kind of subsides. But and then we're looking at this other closed low as it continues, that on Friday will continue moving across, and by the time Sunday rolls around, that'll be over the Carolinas. And so we'll have to see how much colder air is left with this pattern. If we can even see, bring even some snow showers, at least in the higher elevations in South Carolina and North Carolina. So that I'll be taking a look at that as we move forward. But you can definitely see with the NAO going positive, I'm not seeing this slow down. So I do expect this to continue movement across, and that'll bring the colder rain well off the coast and eliminate any snow or any chance of snow for the Northeast, because the North Atlantic oscillation will be positive by then. There's nothing to slow this system down, so I don't expect this to turn up the coast or anything like that as this continues moving across. But you can definitely see by the 7th, remember the P&A goes back negative again, and we also see that snow starting to creep back into the Pacific Northwest again, with some more snows for you guys in the higher elevations of Washington and Oregon, mixing back into Idaho, getting into Wyoming again, and portions of Montana. And that will continue moving across, with that low moving well offshore off the Northeast. We turn our attention again to the west by the time March 9th rolls around, as this low will move back into the pattern by the time March the 9th comes around, with that P&A going negative, right? And so once that continues to remain negative, that trough will just continue moving deeper into the Pacific Northwest, and that'll bring some more colder air aloft down to the surface, and that'll bring you some more snows for the Pacific Northwest and really amplify this pattern again. So I can definitely show you by the time that system on the 9th moves through, that snow will bring through into Washington and Oregon, getting into higher elevations of California. You can definitely see the snow mixing back in by then, in Nevada, get into Idaho, and that just amplifies even further as we deepen into by Thursday. That those snows just intensifies with that closed low, right? I mean, underneath it, we got a lot of snow starting to break out again into the Four Corners regions. That'll traverse across, finally bringing some more snow for Montana, getting into the Dakotas by then, and getting into Minnesota as some colder air tries to sneak back into the mix. But yeah, overall, I mean, here's the wind. So let me show you over the next 10 days. You can definitely see the higher winds are going to be right around where those closed lows are going to be. So this one right here by New Mexico, once you get into those portions of New Mexico, yeah, you can be seeing some very high winds of 50, 60, 70 miles per hour right around where that closed low is going to be. Here's South Carolina, here's North Carolina, where that closed low is going to be. You can definitely see some of the higher winds mixing back in. And by the time we get into the 9th, 10th, and 11th of next week, yeah, some of those closed lows will be back over to the Four Corners regions, getting into Nevada and Colorado by then. So you can definitely see where the higher winds are going to be setting up over the next 10 days, and especially the snow. So here's the snowfall over the next 10 days. You can see the far northeastern parts of the U.S., not going to be much precipitation to be taken advantage of, but all the snow is going to be well into southeastern Canada with some very heavy amounts of snow. We're talking anywhere from 1, 2, almost up to 3 feet in spots. And then we turn our attention to the Pacific Northwest, where it does have some snow in the beginning. They'll subside a little bit for the first by the end of the week, but by next week it really ramps up. And over those 10 days, man, we can definitely be seeing some heavier snows again into Idaho, into Nevada, sneaking down into Arizona, New Mexico, and into Colorado, and the Utah, and to Montana, and that'll traverse across into Montana, getting into North Dakota, as well as Minnesota. So that is your snow over the next 10 days, and then your liquid precipitation as well, with down to the south. They're still going to be in a wet, rainy pattern as those troughs continue to traverse and across from west to east. So definitely some more rains from portions of the Dallas-Fort Worth area, extending all the way through the deep south of Louisiana, Mississippi, Alabama, getting into Georgia, getting into the Carolinas, even into Florida, and that'll mix up into Tennessee and portions of Kentucky and into West Virginia. That's your liquid precipitation. And then once the second week of March comes about, then your atmospheric river starts again for the Pacific Northwest as the P&A goes back negative again. That'll amplify the pattern, bring in some liquid precipitation along the coast. but then really ramping up with your snows into more of the interior regions of the Pacific Northwest. So I appreciate you guys watching. Do like this video. Definitely leave your comments below. And don't forget to subscribe to my channel to catch the latest update where I protect you before and after the storm.